Welcome to Northwest Tech Show. I'm Dave Duncan, joined today by Nate Darnell. How you doing, sir?
Howdy, howdy, Duncan. I'm doing fantastic.
Well, we have all sorts of interview goodness on our shows today.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Yes, as part of our ramp up to our exciting new time with a new frequency in Salem, we want to, just kind of practice giving you our best, and that means, getting local voices on the air as much as we can. So we're going to do that with a gentleman from Ctrl Hackerspace, the other co-founder of the spot. With that said, let's kick things off with our friend over at Ctrl H, and we'll come back in about 20 minutes after the interview is in, and have all sorts of other interesting little space stories and law stories and cyber stories, software stories. So it's going to be an action-packed episode, starting off with Ctrl H. We're talking to John Hannes today of Ctrl H. John, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, so, wow, this kind of popped up out of nowhere. I usually hear some grumblings about this stuff, but it's like, bang, you've got a great space, and you got people coming out to your events, and I saw on your drop cam, I saw little laser animations going on the wall. Looks like you got a party going there.
Yeah. So we host events regularly now. We've been working on it for a long time, and we decided that instead of doing an official thing, because we have so many partitions in this building, that we would aim at getting one of the partitions up and running while still concentrating on the other. So I don't feel that we're officially open. Of course, we are open. We're accepting membership and all that here in North Portland. But I won't feel like we're officially open until I either don't hear the word sheetrock or any construction-related talk, for a week, I think. And then that'll be the official launch. But, yeah, we're still working. We're actually finishing up the electronics lab. And within the next week or two, we should have all of the electronics. If anyone goes to controlh.org, they can see the drop camp from there. And there's some 3D printers and a bunch of there's some O-scopes and just lots of electronic gizmos and tubs filled with electronics. Those will all be relocated to the electronics lab within the next week or two.
Which term do you prefer, a hackerspace or a makerspace?
I prefer hackerspace. I understand that there is sort of a problem with that. But the term hackerspace or hacker, it's been around longer, and it has a decent history. There was sort of a movement back in 2007 that started with the CCC in Germany. It's out of that movement that I feel that we're still a part of it and still connected with that. That said, the reason that you hack is to understand things and to make things, and so I feel that the two words are synonymous, but I prefer hacker.
The typical debate goes something like, reclaiming the word, because it's always constantly abused in mainstream media, right? Any crime that involves anything with a transistor and all of a sudden was hackers did this. It wasn't criminals, it was hackers, right?
Right.
So,
right.
And maker sounds like more like the Boy Scouts. So it kind of gets people into what you're really about, which is learning how things work and, how to actually have some, agency with the things in your environment, without all the sort of criminal connotations. So I like both of them too.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, our core demographic are okay with the term hacker because they understand the history of it. We also have community outreach. We have middle school kids. And so depending on who we're talking to, we will interchange either the word maker with hacker or hacker with maker.
Well, it's about the environment you're in too. And you're in Portland, so that's a little...
Right.
Maybe in Oklahoma or something, you might want to make it a makerspace, but...
Yeah, exactly.
Now you had some outreach going with kids with was there some other outfit like PDX DIY? I think I heard something like that.
And they actually had an event today. It was pretty cool. They they tested the ability to shoot paintballs accurately, and they had a group of, oh gosh, it might have been up to 20 kids, around 11 years old. And they would try to shoot paintballs at a target and sort of document the grouping, and then they would play a first-person shooter game and see if that would help their real life.
If they're learning from one transferred to the other.
Right, if it activated some part of their brain.
Did they run electric current through their forehead?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
That'll probably be down the line, maybe, too.
Did you hear about that? The transcranial stimulation, where it was supposed to, you could put people in kind of a timeless state where they were much better at identifying and hitting targets.
Well, we do have one of those transcranial stimulation setups. I can't remember the name offhand, but it looks fairly strange, and the website that advertises for it shows a guy playing video games and has one of these on his head. I've tried it. It just hurts. It hurts my head. I don't know if I don't have a good enough connection or what. But
well, and who knows what the long-term effect is, but yeah. Did you by chance go to the event in New York?
So we did have people at Hope.
Hackers on Planet Earth. Yeah. Yeah, I think I saw one of the those tall, thin Bitcoin ATMs, or a couple foot tall.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I saw a couple of guys there.
So I have one that needs to go out to Columbia first thing tomorrow, so that they can have I think it's the first one in the country in Columbia. So
hey, just on
exciting stuff.
Let's see, you have open houses on Thursdays or something. What's that about?
Yeah, so every Thursday it's at 7 p.m. It goes fairly late, and it's an open house. Anybody can come in and look at our 3D printers. We have a laser. We have a 40-watt CO2 laser in the house. We have a couple of CNC machines.
Nice.
And before you get too excited, it's not an epilogue or anything. It was purchased on AliExpress. So we were just happy that it worked at all when we got it. It uses Corel Draw, which is probably 15 years old. And, but all that aside, it works. It does what it's supposed to do. And, it's able to focus down and cut, what it's prescribed to be able to cut. So we're happy with it.
What kind of materials can you do with that one?
So it'll do up to, I think, a 1/4 inch of wood or plastic.
Nice.
And so we have a number of projects that we're working on. We have some corrugated plastic material that we're using and just cardboard, as well as some bamboo skins. So we have a number of members who are making use of it.
Very cool. So let's see. So we got the PDX DIY. You got the Bitcoin going on. You got lasers, 3D printers. Does anyone use it as an office space? Or
Yeah. So we don't have that space ready yet, but we are working on a co-working space, and it's the southernmost partition in the building, the one that has the corner glass. If you look out at 7600 North Interstate Avenue in Portland, from Street View, you can see what I'm talking about. It's just there's sort of a corner partition there.
Okay. All right. I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, we hope to have at least 15 or so spots in there where we can have co-working. But for now, people just sort of put their stuff on whatever desk is available and make sure we have fast internet and redundant internet and power strips, and that's covered most people for now. But there is a lot of demand also for co-working, like permanent space where people want to bring in their own raised desk and things like that. And so we want to provide some of that as well.
And I heard there's like an RFID locker system in the offing. That sounds great.
Yeah. So we already have the access control for the main space, which has been working pretty well. And so the next step, we have all the zones figured out, and everything's controlled through an XML. And so, it's just a matter of zoning lockers and defining which lockers open when. We have all the solenoids now, and most of the material that we need to construct them. We just need a little bit more time to construct all of these lockers, and then we'll be pretty good for sort of a co-working storage space. Also in the electronics lab, we have some 3.5 foot deep, I guess they're called Costco racks. Some people call them that. If you look online, if you look for pallet racks, but we're going to have lockable space underneath. It's roughly 4.5 feet tall. It'll be 16 feet long, and then 3.5 feet deep. And that's a bunch of lockable storage space as well. So not just the lockers, but we're planning on having rolling carts, wire carts
nice.
that we
Are
placed
those
under there. So
are those like steel wireframe racks that are like?
yeah, they're chromed.
Yeah,
steel
I've got a
racks.
whole bunch of those. I love those things. So someone could have their intact project rolled in there and lock it up, and then just pull it in and just start working on it.
Right, exactly. And also, we'll be able to, say, have a part just dedicated to electronics, intro to electronics night, where we have a bunch of soldering irons and material in the form of sort of kits. So,
so you're doing filled with. So you're using it in terms of multi-purposing the space. You don't have to dedicate a lot of space.
Yeah.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah. So, the main partition that's on the drop cam, the L-shaped partition, we want to have this as useful as possible. So to have it reconfigurable and be able to easily move tables around and chairs around, and have meetups hopefully every night of the week. That's the goal, because we have so many different partitions here. We have 4,500 square feet inside, and then another 5,000 square feet out back. We have a hacker bus. I don't know if Russell told you about that.
No, that sounds great.
It's owned by a few of our members. It has wood flooring in it and couches and chairs, comfortable seating. And it's for maybe 10 to 15 people if it was just to be a meetup space that they could go into with their laptops and hack on stuff or whatever. But also, it goes to various conferences around the Pacific Northwest, and I believe it'll be going to DEF CON this year. So,
wonderful. But to have something mobile that you could take her out to a school or something and say, hey, let's have a makerspace day at this school. That's nice.
Right. Yeah. So it hasn't been used as much for that application yet, but there's always the potential of that. Yeah. It's a fun thing for events. So actually, if anyone does have any suggestions, I'll try to put you in contact with the owners of the bus and see if that makes sense for an activity, because they're looking for stuff. They're happy to host events and whatnot.
Excellent. Now I was looking around on the street view there. The back lot, at least at the last time Street View came by, was kind of overgrown and had a boat in it and all this stuff. I gather it's been converted.
Yeah, the boat's no longer here. Let's see, there was an Oldsmobile, and that's no longer here. The orchard in the back corner, that still exists, and it's just about the right time of year to start pruning. So it's been about 8 years of it not being pruned, and so we're going to be pruning it fairly quickly. And converting that space, we have some plans for that back area to build sort of an octagonal picnic table around each, put in either pavers or some bark mulch.
Oh, around a tree?
And then around the trees, yeah.
Oh.
So, and then also have addressable LEDs, or if not addressable, then string lighting, so that we can have more comfortable space once the weather is a bit warmer. We have a giant grapevine out back there, and two fairly old, probably 30 or so years old fruit trees. So it provides some nice cover when they do have leaves on them. Eventually, we want to have a few things out there. We want to have a greenhouse, some raised beds. We've been looking at shipping, 20-foot shipping container for more flame-friendly activities. We have a plasma cutter that we'd like to convert into a CNC machine. Let's see, there's a forge, an idea for a forge we want to build. And then tiny homes. We have a group that meets every week here at the space that are all tiny home enthusiasts, and we have enough space in the back, and we've gotten permission to go about constructing a tiny home on the property that, of course, would be on wheels, so it could be removed.
Right, but it'd be kind of like a demo. At a later time. It'd be a demo of tiny home construction.
Yeah, exactly. So to lead workshops on different aspects of tiny home construction while we're building it, that would be the intent. And then having some incentives for members of the space. So if you have a tiny home, then maybe every 3 or 6 months or something of being a member, you get a couple nights in the tiny home that you could reserve. So if you have a project that you know you're going to be working on the weekends, of course you can't crouch on the couch here.
Right.
But you could go out to the tiny home and then come right back in, after you get a few hours of sleep and keep working. So, and then it also opens us up to having exchange programs that we could, sort of have hackers from other hackerspaces or makerspaces come by and couch surf for a while, and that would be an exciting thing. part of that hacker exchange.
Now, what I'm hearing here is a lot of connection between different groups. Are these places that you already had a hand in, or was it like as soon as the word went out there was a new space around, they got in touch with you?
Well, I'd been involved in a number of meetups, and a lot of the people who were at Brain Silo before this new location opened up, they were interested in various things. And so there's really a core group, about 10 of us who are here most often and are able to attend all these various meetups, and then slowly trying to convert them over to coming here and meeting at this space, because it just makes more sense. We wouldn't kick anyone out, after hours. Like we have this 3D printing meetup, for example. Just a whole nother tangent I'm going to go on.
Oh, yeah. No, please.
Where they meet monthly, and the space that they're meeting in now, it's not ideal because they get kicked out after a few hours of meeting.
and a 3D print job only takes like 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. So that's like 20% of a print job for one meetup,
Yeah,
so
I should add in here that the first 5 or 6 times I tuned into the drop cam, no matter what time it was, the 3D printer was going and going and going.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we have a few ideas for that, where we could have something on Fridays. We want to get it set up so that it's just a weekly event. So you come in and we all have our various projects that we're working on. Maybe if you have a rep wrap that you're halfway to building and you need some help, then help can be provided. Or if you have some questions about, which is the best 3D software you should be using so that you can design your STL file before you slice it, assistance with those types of things. Just community run, There's all these different meetups where it might make more sense to meet here, and each one of those different meetups that we're in contact with have people who are motivated enough to organize for the meetups in the first place. And so, they're actively involved in their communities and thinking about things like tiny homes, and they have lots and lots and lots of interests. So it's interesting the way that we've sort of seen this thing take shape. It's very much a field of dreams approach.
If you build it, they will come.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like you kind of you hit the ground running with a lot of momentum, just because you inherited a lot of relationships and connections from the Brain Silo. Getting into a friendlier, more appropriate space next to a Fred Meyer's. You got a coffee shop across the street. It looks like good space. I was asking Russell about this, and he said you were the guy that handled all the sort of paperwork to get a makerspace going. Did you by chance tap into the School Factory, or did you have some other experience that let you do the paperwork?
We have looked at School Factory. We've talked to them, but in the end, it just we couldn't put it together fast enough. So it's an LLC. It's a benevolent dictatorship, and I'm the dictator. But the intent is to have our own 501c3 fairly soon. The problem with School Factory is that if you're trying to get corporations that are within the state to help you out, and this is where the incentives are, is to get big companies that are in the Silicon Forest here around Portland. You need to have a 501c3 that's associated with the entity that's in the same state.
So that makes sense. So to get that kind of local connection, you need to have something that's a fully a local company.
Yeah, but so that said, we're looking for any hacker maker attorney pro bono that might be interested in helping us out. I did LegalZoom my first one. Shortly thereafter, I figured out how to do it on my own. So.
You guys like, okay, I got this now. All right, well, so now you got the main space is just, it looks fully functional right now. I guess you got some more work to do on the roof or something? Or the ceiling?
Well, it is very much whack-a-mole. So the building was constructed in 1931, and the roof might be from that time. We're not exactly sure. And so we make regular trips up there and put on more roofing cement wherever it is that we are seeing discoloration. So our job isn't done yet, but we have, I think, about 95% of it complete.
So are you usually there on Thursdays?
Oh, yeah. I'll be here at every open house. Thursdays at 7. We also have work parties that go from 1 to 7:30 p.m. on Saturdays. So if anyone has to work during the week and is too tired and would rather come out on Saturday, that works as well.
All right. I was actually going to try to come out to one of those, but it turned out Saturdays are just not working. So I'm probably going to try one of the Thursday nights. But thank you so much for talking to me for a little bit, and really excited about the space, and I hope to get up there pretty soon and get inspired to do what we need to do to get one going here in Salem. And,
yeah, that'd be a really great thing for the whole Hackerspace community to just have more Hackerspace. Thanks a lot for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. This has been John Hannes of Ctrl H, the new makerspace in Portland Northeast. And you're back to the KMUZ studios for Northwest Tech Show with Dave Duncan and Nate Darnell. What'd you think of that little piece there from John?
Well, that was definitely nice. Talk to me more about this school bus thing that they've modified. Is it like a real schoolie, like a genuine school bus?
I haven't seen a picture of it yet. I'm gonna, but he has offered to put me in touch with the guys that are running the bus, and I'm gonna go visit that hackerspace on a Thursday for one of their open houses. I was gonna go on a Saturday, but Saturdays just weren't working out, so I'll go for one of the open houses and I'll have a look at their bus. But it sounds like basically I've ridden on open floor plan shuttles up to Portland, and I always thought that was just a marvelous way to travel. And when they're talking about putting couches and stuff in a bus, I'm sure that's what they mean.
Right.
Wood floor, basically it's a living room on wheels.
Yeah, and it's really cool. Genuine school buses are actually ideal for modifying because they're, number one, dirt cheap. and what most people don't realize is that they're built with a much higher degree of rigidity for safety purposes.
Oh, so they'd be able to hold up under a bigger load.
Well, they're designed to be uncrushable. Basically they can roll over and they don't collapse.
Okay.
And so
for the roofs
that's
and stuff.
Yeah, that's
okay.
why when like a train hits a school bus, you see the frame rails still there on the ground and the whole top shears off and spins around.
Yeah.
And because it's all kind of encapsulated. I think they're made out of aluminum, but it's all engineered to be crush resistant.
Nice.
So they're just really strong. Now the ride can be a little rough. You got to soften the suspension a little bit or put more weight in it. So, if you just load it up with a whole bunch of people or couches or a kitchen or something, then the springs get more compressed and it's a more tolerable ride. But
yeah, I mean, I was actually kind of daydreaming about having this kind of vehicle for a Salem to Portland loop, to go visit tech and arts events.
Sure.
And maybe, I have received some additional interest, so I may see about what it would cost to lease something like that, and it may be feasible to do it if I got enough people interested. But that was a really comfortable way to travel, and I thought this is the way to go. You have your internet going on, through some satellite based Wi-Fi, and you basically got a studio on wheels. A friend of mine actually converted a maintenance bus because the county or something had gone to a slightly different standard for their maintenance buses, so he picked up something that was virtually new for dirt cheap.
Yeah,
I mean less than the price of the tires, and he converted that into a production vehicle. And it's nice. I mean, it kind of looks military, but
yeah, people do that with ambulances.
Yeah,
the problem is ambulances by the time you get them are generally so beat up,
because people are so gentle on their ambulance motor, right? They're never gunning it.
Yeah, everything rattles.
Yeah,
and it's
that's no good. That's not a fun ride.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this sounds really nice. I saw some Street View pictures of this and Google satellite images and looking through the drop cam. So I've been spying this thing remotely from all different angles. So it'll be fun to go there. But if anyone wants to check it out, it's crtlh.org, I believe. If you just if you look for Ctrl H Hackerspace, it'll pop right up. And one of the links there is the drop cam, and you can look right into their main area. And on a Thursday, they last one I looked at, they had 15 people milling around, and it was a very diverse groups. It wasn't just like a whole bunch of geeky guys. It was it was men, women, and children that were hanging out there. So. I mean, all the projects they're into. I mean, they talked a little bit about. I just apropos of nothing. I was mentioning. I brought up transcranial stimulation, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we got one of those units." Kind of hurt my head, but yeah, we got one of those. So I was like, "Oh wow, this is the place. This is the place." So, and if we get something going on here, it'd be a nice little bridge between spaces like this and the Eugene Makerspace down in Eugene. So. yeah, we can have the valley kind of dotted with, can't drive an hour without hitting a makerspace. I think that'd be awesome. All right, well, let's
Bring them to us.
Bring them to us. Yeah, let's hit some other tech news. First, I got to go. There's a kind of a triumvirate of things involving Elon Musk and SpaceX.
Yeah.
So
He's going crazy.
He's basically Tony Stark. So he's he's building electric cars and he was talking about the Hyperloop for doing quick travel, and he's actually apparently decided to build a test track. I mean, initially he just floated like, "Hey, this would be a great idea for someone else to do," but I'm kind of busy with my space company and my electric car company and stuff, so I can't do it. But, and he had released kind of the concept for this Hyperloop, which is a vacuum tube, ultra high speed system or low pressure or something like that. But, he just recently they were opening up some SpaceX offices in Seattle, and he was commenting that about several things. Let's see. Oh, he was there talking about space internet, so I'll get to that in a second. But he was tweeting. Here it was. "We will be building a Hyperloop test track for companies and student teams to test out their pods, most likely in Texas." So, very cool. Also thinking of having an annual student Hyperloop pod racer competition like Formula SAE. Yeah, literal pod racing. And so here's some bullet points about the Hyperloop system. The first full-size Hyperloop track, read not this one, would run from LA to San Francisco. Musk's design group estimates the cost of the LA-San Francisco track to be $6 billion. That trip, based on total conceptual estimates, would take 35 minutes. The conceptual top speed is roughly 760 miles per hour. Musk believes the Hyperloop would work above ground or below ground, and it works by sending pressurized pods through a tube. This tube is theoretically, hopefully, kept at a partial vacuum, allowing the vehicle to move within significantly reduced air resistance. The pod itself floats on a cushion of air, with the pod's design meant to utilize air pressure buildup, which would generally slow a vehicle down to its advantage. Mm-hmm. So, very energy efficient, too. So, so that's in the offing, which is cool, because I think if anyone was actually going to build it, it would be Elon Musk. And as I said, he was talking about space internet at the opening of some new Seattle offices, and this would be hundreds of satellites, 750 miles up. Project he estimates would cost about $15 billion, and it would be at least 5 years until they could produce the satellites. And this is probably based on the new small satellite technology, where you basically, there was an observation a while ago that basically you could put a cell phone in orbit and it would make a decent satellite.
Well, so that would be disruptive to the existing carriers.
Yes, it would. And he also mentioned that the speed of light is 40%. Oh, is that right? 40%? It was significantly faster in a vacuum than it was over fiber. So the space internet would actually be faster than the ground-based fiber internet. Although, we are still talking about the speed of light, so probably the differences are not going to be huge.
Yeah, it's like, do you want to do 12,000 or 14,000 miles per hour?
Yeah, something like that. Scaled up, for speed of light. And, and that would also lay the groundwork for a solar internet, going out to Mars, which was another one of his, that's kind of one of his big things, is that he really wants to help humanity get to Mars. Now, to further put some lift under the wings of those dreams, he's also apparently sold 10% stake in SpaceX to Google and Fidelity for $1 billion. So, and that is done apparently not only as a fundraiser for the projects they want to work on, but also as a way to kind of lure Google into executing on their dreams. So then you start having Google money behind your quest to Mars. If SpaceX provides the expertise, and you're already partially owned by this basic money printing machine over there at Google, I think there's very little that they could not accomplish if they put their minds to it. And Elon seems like Paige and Sergey, someone who just wants to change the world for the better. That seems to be more of their motivation. That's what they find fun, rather than seeing how big a pile of cash they can sleep on, So it's really good to see that kind of energy in a few of the uber elite. These are the sorts of characters that, certain trickle-down economics types would say, oh, this is what all rich people are like. It's like, no, they're actually... So there are a few remarkable individuals that actually do interesting things with their money, and the rest are kind of, conventional. But I mean, and all of them are doing charity to some degree. I mean, Gates is out there, solving diseases and things like this. But, it's really hard for one person to make as good a use of money as, 1,000 people or 1 million people. No one is a million times smarter than the next guy. Anyone like that would probably have telekinesis and be able to, fly through the air by the power of their thoughts. So we're not quite there yet, although we do have some remarkable individuals, and it's sure fun to see them, help push the species up a little bit and say, hey, let's get off this rock. So we've got Cory Doctorow, who's the famed advocate, free speech advocate, and Creative Commons champion, and he was with the EFF for a while, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, which was fighting for civil rights in the electronic space, and he's rejoining them for something called the Apollo 1201 project, and the goal is to end digital rights management, DRM, in our lifetime. This stuff is, and I think he's made a pretty good case for it, a poison on innovation. It's really a way for the guys who've already made it to lock everyone else out and to, put fences around the commons, that, stuff that's already been put out by someone else and maybe put in the public domain. If you produce it in a DRM'd format, then no one can do anything with your version, because under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, Section 1201, it makes it a crime to unlock for any reason, even a reason that would otherwise be legal. So, the PR is, this is to stop copyright violations and blah, blah, blah. But it prohibits unlocking DRM for any reason, or access controls for any reason. And it's been misused to suppress competition, free speech, and fair use. So, for example, you may have seen the coffee maker pods now, that they have an encryption protocol with their refills, or printers that have an encrypted channel with their printer to prevent third parties from making cheap refills. Because famously they find that the most, under the monopoly granted under DMCA kind of situation, they find the most efficient way to bilk the customers out of their money is to, sell them a cheap printer and, get them committed. And then they sell them very expensive printer ink, which is actually, if you measure it out by its weight, it's far more precious than gold.
Yes.
So, and there were, for those few people, it's just like, man, I really can't afford this. They're willing to put in the time to go out and get an ink refill kit and refill their printer, or find these off-brand replacements. It's like, no, we're going to cryptographically lock those out, and if you try to reverse engineer these to be compatible, then you're a copyright villain.
I've got like a 15-year-old laser printer that just keeps on going.
Yeah, right before all this stuff got added to it, right?
Yeah, and it's just you can go out and get really cheap toner cartridges for it now, because they're just refillable by the big boys that do that.
Well, we've talked about this, that due to the increasing enthusiasm for planned obsolescence, a lot of older items are much better than the current items.
Yeah. The only drawback is that now that you have PDF files that are like 4 and 5 megabytes in size, the older printers...
Oh, they don't have the memory.
They don't have the memory. Yeah.
Wow. So you almost... I mean, I guess you could have you could call it a spoon feed box you attach on the port there that... has all the memory for them, that acts like a modern printer, and then spoon feeds it to the old printer a little bit at a time.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so much better that it might be worthwhile to do that. One of these bricks that just that goes and goes and goes. Now, in a little positive legal note, we have on the side here, and it's a little off topic for us, but it falls in the wheelhouse a little bit. There were these crazy civil forfeiture laws that a lot of localities, basically there's been a few guys peddling this is how it's legal to steal money from your citizens by, you pull them over for whatever, it's a traffic stop or whatever, and you ask them, if they have any large amount of cash on them. And some of them will say yes, and then you'll say, well, can I see it? And then you take it from them and you say, I'm going to presume this has something to do with drugs, and sign this note saying you're okay with me taking this, or I'll arrest you. And then they get to keep the money. There's this rather involved process where they basically have to prove beyond any doubt whatsoever.
This is real? This is genuine?
No, this is real. Yeah, and especially, small towns on places where there's high traffic, boy, they traffic stop a lot. Boy, they're very suspicious. Then there have been famous cases like, hey, I have this money from my family. I'm going to this town to this guy to buy his restaurant. This is the cash for this sale. Here's the phone numbers of everybody involved. It's easy to confirm. It's like, no, I'll just take that cash.
Well, you've got these little logging towns that are just dying on the vine.
Oh,
There's been this, slow, torturous death for like 30 years since we claimed that we couldn't do logging because of the one-eyed wood owl or whatever it was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so they're hungry. They're starving for money.
Exactly.
And there's...
I know I got pulled over one time. Except I didn't have any cash. I just had I just had a giant jar of dried kale, which just happened. I was driving.
Oh, and it looked like maybe something else?
Oh, definitely. And
okay, well, this isn't for that kind of case, though. I mean, the forfeiture was meant for things like, you got some drug lord and he's got a bunch of fancy lawyers in there. They're just dancing around you, and you have reason to believe stuff's going on. Yeah. But you just can't stick the point.
So then, do they just take that money and put it in an account and just let it earn interest? And is that what they make?
No,
their money
they just
on?
here's our money.
Can they actually use it?
Oh, absolutely. See, that's the horrible thing is the complaints have been, you should never, even if you have this power to deal with these extraordinary cases, and you have the power to forfeit things for the public good, you should not personally benefit from doing that. That is basically a license to steal.
It just seems to me that, I mean, if they're holding it temporarily, No, here's the thing. I mean, well, check out, do a Google search for what was it, Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, civil forfeiture. That is a great little piece on the whole thing. The only legal process is things like, the city of Smallville versus a pile of cash. I mean, the defendant is an inanimate object, and therefore there is no right to a lawyer in those proceedings. You just simply say that that's terrible.
It is terrible. It's one of those things. It's been on the books for a long time, but nobody was classless enough to actually use it, except for cases where some drug lord was flouting the law, and you just say, okay, fine, I'll take your yacht. But it's been used to impound houses because a child in the family had some marijuana. It's like, oh, okay, well, your house is involved with dealing drugs. We're going to take your house. If you've got a marijuana bud stumped out on a yacht, you get to take the yacht. And as in these cash cases, just simply having a large amount of cash in and of itself is essentially suspicious and subjects you to having that cash removed from you and not given back without a lot of legal negotiations. Well, okay, so the news story, though, this is all the old news. And there's two types of civil forfeiture. There's state-based and federal-based. And a lot of the states have it kind of locked down to something reasonable. Unfortunately, the federal version was very open, very open-ended, very flexible. And they had this arrangement that when you did civil forfeiture under the federal statutes, that the locality got to keep a big portion of it. And so, you were kind of basically sidestepping your state's, whatever your state chose to do. It didn't matter. You're just going to invoke the federal law and, and give them basically pay them a licensing fee for their, use of their great federal law. So this has gotten like you, every time anyone hears about this, they're just like, what? That can't be right. So Eric Holder did a step out recently and say, we're cutting that back. We're not allowing little localities to just at will invoke the federal forfeiture laws. So, finally, thank you for you finally decided as the Attorney General of the United States that maybe just stealing cash at random from citizens is a bad idea. Thank you. At least he did it. It took way too long. I mean, this has been severely abused for several years now. There's been, multiple, like kind of Nightline, Frontline, 60 Minutes-ish kinds of coverage.
So how long has this been happening? Has this been happening for decades, or is it just recently?
It's been on the law forever.
Okay.
But it's become a problem only in the last 5-10 years.
As departments are doing whatever they can to make money.
Yeah. I think basically, there were a few places that were doing this. And then someone decided to become a traveling salesman and start teaching all the other departments how to do it.
Excellent.
At which point it became a big enough problem that they finally said, okay, we're not going to allow this anymore. But, hey, it's just like one town in South Dakota or something doing it. You don't care. We're not going to change the federal law over that. So that finally changed. To me, that has been almost number one in obviously unjust laws in the United States. So I'm really happy to report that one has been curtailed significantly. I don't know. This is kind of a mixed bag of sad news or not. Google Glass is no longer available through the Explorer program.
Yeah, they're retiring it. Why do you think?
Retiring it. Now there's different phrases here. There's retiring it. There's graduating it, and I think and an Oculus Rift I think got bought up by Facebook. And, a lot of places were thinking like they're trying to get ahead of this going, okay, is virtual reality or augmented reality going to be the next big thing after cell phones, after mobile? And I heard some pretty good arguments this weekend on This Week in Tech that maybe it was not the next thing because they made the very important point that there are things that make something more integrated into your life, and then there are technologies that are kind of destination experiences. And immersing yourself in a 3D environment is more a destination experience rather than something that you have in your everyday life.
Yeah, I think it's different. I think there's a political issue here. And I think he was recording a lot of things that people didn't want recorded.
Well, that was the perception. Now, this was not, I should say, this was an augmented reality kind of thing, in that it was the same thing as with these Apple and Google watches they're coming out with, where it's an extension to your phone and it allows you to see things, like alerts and things.
So I can tell you, if you were sitting in a boardroom and you were dealing with this possible dilemma, this is the way that you would handle it in a boardroom. This is the way corporate America actually works.
Now, by dilemma, you mean somebody sitting there with some glasses on, or you have your product is these glasses?
Your product is these glasses, and now all of a sudden there's this massive backlash because
people
of concerned
getting beat
citizens.
Up and getting thrown out of bars because they're wearing glasses.
Yeah, and concerned citizens. So they're going to say, okay, look, we know how we can use this technology, and especially different agencies within our government can use this technology to source information that they deem very valuable. But right now we have a major public backlash against it. Let's do this. Let's retire it publicly so they feel more comfortable, and then let's repackage it in another way that they don't really know about. That's exactly what happens in boardroom environments.
Right.
You don't want to admit that. I don't want to admit it, but
Facebook's like that too, right?
That's really what they do. And they say, they won't know any different. They're sheeple. So let's just repackage it differently, and they won't even know.
Yeah. Like Facebook repeatedly they do whatever they wanted to, and then when there's a backlash, they say, "Oh," and they pull that back, and then they sneak it back in later.
And the way they do it, the reason they do it that way is because it still leaves a good taste in the mouths of the public citizens when they're looking at that company. That's right.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they did the right thing. They pulled it out of the market to protect us all, and in reality, they're doing just the reverse. All they did was cover over the issue
for temporarily,
and they're turning right around and repackaging.
And when it comes back, you don't think, "Oh, wow," you don't like go back in time and remove that good feeling. You still have that good feeling from that time.
Exactly.
So you're like, well, they sometimes listen to me. It's like, well, no, you only feel that way because they took down something that they're now bringing out again. So I guess they didn't really listen to you after all.
It's called spin doctoring.
Spin doctors. That's going to be a show unto itself.
That's right.
Teaching people how to spin doctor. And then you use the list of people that subscribe to it as a list of people that should be in jail. So anyway, the internal PR release language is that it's graduated to being a regular project that they may bring out in some other form at another time. I think the main thing most people objected to was the camera.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there was the same kinds of concerns when cell phones came out, when the smartphones came out with the cameras on them, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, there's going to be all these pictures being taken that shouldn't be being taken." And you know what? Over time, people just kind of dealt with the fact that people had a camera on their phone, and people kind of got a sense of when it was and was not appropriate to use it. So maybe when they'll bring back these glasses later on as just a way to read your mail or see alerts or do directions or something. And then when people are used to people having a visual way of getting this data without having to pull something out of your pocket, then maybe they'll be ready for the cameras to come back out. So,
yeah, it's kind of like if you just feed crap to the young people, that didn't grow up in other eras, like where they actually had real food.
Yeah.
They don't know any different. They don't know what real food used to be. Right?
Yeah.
So they just grew up on the rubbish. Just saying, it's kind of like before the years of engineered obsolescence. If they grow up in an era where they've already been desensitized and have low expectations, then they don't know they don't know to ask or demand, more. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
And I think privacy, ties into that. Which is if you don't start demanding your privacy, they will keep pushing further and further and further and further.
Yeah, this is true. This is the boiling the frog thing that we've talked about a few times. You just keep turning up the general pressure, and we get closer and closer to.
And one of the solutions they look at to handle that is they don't want people to have privacy because it's much easier to control them if if they can find out information about them. So let's just desensitize the subsequent generations to just believe that privacy is dead, and that way they won't know any better.
I guess that sort of brings us to what the UK Prime Minister has been advocating, which is that basically make it illegal to have private conversations. Make things like the way iMessage and WhatsApp currently work, where it's peer-to-peer key negotiation without the server being involved. They're saying there should be no crypto channel, no safe communication channel for terrorists where, on a personal letter from the chancellor of the something or other,
but
if this, top official that we all respect personally signs a letter, we should be able to get that communication. It shouldn't be denied us by technical means.
But this is a terrible approach because what you're doing is now you're forcing the vast majority of all of humanity to accommodate severe and massive infiltration of their private lives because a small number of hurt people who want to hurt other people, a very small number, do very bad things. And so the solution is to compromise the freedom of everyone else.
And guess what? The strong crypto is out there. We already know how to do it. If you don't allow it in a large product, then it will simply, be developed in other countries and imported. Yeah. And then we know there's all sorts of, even if there's a stenography where you can hide it in innocent traffic, short of cutting everyone off from everyone else, there's no way to prevent two people from having a private conversation. And on the corollary of it is there's no way for two people to have a private conversation if you've specifically targeted them in advance. You can, the bugging technology is just astounding. It's what they're really talking about is convenient bugging and mass bugging and cheap bugging.
Yeah.
It's like, no, pick your targets and then use all the tools you have. One of the other stories I was reading here was, some police departments are using a radar device that lets you see through walls up to 50 feet to see if there's any movement, up to 50 feet away, there's any movement in some place. And they'll often bury the language like, we on information that the suspect was in the home, we entered and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, on the information that you use this radar device there to see, oh, yeah, he's right here. And then they entered. And that's already been, I believe, at the Supreme Court level ruled, unacceptable to like, say, use high sensitivity infrared goggles to see inside buildings. And this is another way of doing the same thing, just saying, oh, we've got a radar unit instead of infrared.
Right.
But
I don't know.
see. Well, I got to finish up on some positive news though, and I guess on that last one, I'd just say, there's statements and President Obama was somewhat sympathetic to Cameron's statements, and so that's kind of worrying. And it's impractical, but that doesn't mean they won't try to pass it. And I think the big rallying cry has been that when you make things insecure, that's going to cause more damage than any amount of benefit you're going to get from spying.
I think the following really simple principle should hold true. If you're going to deal with communications and you want everyone's lines of communication to be open, that means the president and all politicians have to have open communication so everyone in the public can see what they're talking about too. It has to be a fair game.
At the very least, on production of a court order, we should be able to, the Freedom of Information Act should be run by a third party, not just them deciding, yeah, I guess we'll comply with this. We should say, yeah, third party is going to process Freedom of Information Acts. They will have backdoors to all your ciphers. And if, there's an act saying, we want to know what you're doing on the evening of the 15th, we will open up your cryptography and see what you were talking about.
I'm laughing because the Freedom of Information Act is another joke. It's another.
Well, it's accomplished a lot. So it's not as powerful as it should be, but it's certainly better than nothing. And I think we talked about the what was it, the something response that's named after that boat, where we can neither confirm nor deny the existence of such and such because it would compromise our security or something like that. Glomar.
The Glomar Explorer was a special operations CIA vessel that was used to extract a Russian submarine.
And when they were asked about it, they came up with this great response that said, essentially, it's like, well, if we had done that, it would be a violation of national security to tell you, so we can neither confirm nor deny.
Right.
So it was like, wow, that was just a masterpiece of, non-denial denial.
Right.
All right. Boy, I got to sneak one last one in here. Can I?
Oh, yeah.
I'll go over the line
by
here just a little bit. But
by all means.
There was an anti-cyberbullying task force, a new program called CrashOverrideNetwork.com, and we will talk about that a little bit more next week. But it's good to see some affirmative action being done because cyber harassment is really easy to do relative to defense. So, it's hard to be in a plugged-in community and prevent the unpleasant speech. So there's prevention of free speech, and then there is prevention of essentially violence done with words, where we're going to talk you into killing yourself, level of harassment done through electronic medium. And it's okay because it's electronic instead of in person. So more on that next week, but at least there's someone doing something about it somewhere. So you've done it again. You spent an hour with David and Nate talking about technology and the various tools we have available at our disposal. Technology can have a great impact on your life, so the more you understand it, the better an impact that will turn out to be. So I hope you join us with this, continue this conversation next Wednesday and every Wednesday from noon to 1 for Northwest Tech Show.